Okay. Good afternoon. The JPS special meeting is now called to order. All board members are present, so therefore we have a quorum. Board members, we've all had an opportunity to review the agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
So moved. Second.
Who moved?
Dr. Hairston.
I
Okay.
did.
All right.
Thank you.
Dr. Harrison has moved. Dr. Sivek has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any nays? There being none, the motion is approved. And we are at the superintendent's report. Dr. Green.
Okay, y'all give me one moment as I get my Zoom life together. One moment. Okay, I'm sharing my screen. Can you see it? Okay. Kind of move your pictures over to the side so I can maneuver a bit here. Okay. Good evening, President Johnson, board members, JPS staff, parents, and scholars who might be joining us here. And I know we've got several people from the JPS community with us here. Thank you, board members, for calling the special meeting today and allowing me to continue, or us to continue, this ongoing conversation about the district's reopening plan. As all of you know, from the start of this pandemic, or at least the call of the pandemic in March, we've committed to listening and learning and ensuring that our plans are reflective of the latest guidance from health officials and in keeping with our local context. We stated that in March, when we decided to have our scholars to continue their learning from home. We stated that later in the school year when we determined that we would not return to school in person for the end of the school year. And we even stated that and continued stating that up to and through our release this past week of our reopening plan. I'm proud of the plan that we developed. I'm proud of the work that the team did and all of the deliberation and all of the efforts to try and address and understand and to come together with something that was in keeping with all of the many needs that we understand to be the case for our scholars and families throughout the district. And I can't thank all of those of you who are involved, even in a small way. I can't thank you enough for the work that went into that plan and the commitment to our district and scholars and families we serve. Unfortunately, our context has continued to shift, and it's become increasingly necessary over a very short period of time to seriously revisit our plan. You have the agenda. We've gone over or displayed the agenda for the meeting. So I want to dive in a little bit here. And forgive me for those who are watching these numbers and can probably quote them as much as I can. But just to kind of set the ground and level set here, there are, as of today, there are 1,610 new confirmed cases in the state, and unfortunately 28 new deaths in the state. And what we've seen over the last week or so is, I don't have the actual average, but somewhere on the order of right at or just over or a bit over 1,000 new cases each day. Also, the COVID cases in Mississippi, the totals, presumed positive cases in Mississippi, nearly 50,000. Again, this is, can we please make sure everyone's muted? And again, these are numbers as of today. Presumed positive cases in Mississippi, nearly 50,000. Presumed positive cases in Hinds County, over 4,000. Total COVID-19 deaths in Mississippi, 1,463. And deaths in Hinds County is reported as of today at 80. Reported, data reported through yesterday, the 23rd, just looking at the spread of cases across age groups. And we quite often talk about our elderly or our older citizens and community members, and of course those with compromised health. But it's been striking to us as we've looked at the data and have seen more and more the cases as they spread across age groups. So, and this is in Mississippi, cases in Mississippi as of the 23rd of July. Under 18, right at 5,000 cases. 18 to 29, 10,732. I won't read all of these numbers, but again, what we had been hearing about those COVID really striking our older citizens and most especially those with compromised health situations. That may still be the case, but we are seeing increased numbers in our younger citizens and community residents. Pediatric cases. These are numbers that have been particularly striking as we've continued to watch the data here in our state. And again, in Mississippi as of July 23rd, under 1 year old, 380 cases. 1 to 5, 899, almost 900 cases. 6 to 10, over 1,000. 11 to 17, 2,568. We've also been paying attention to, as I'm sure many of you have been as well, the cases where folks have been hospitalized, as that from the beginning has been one of the major concerns of our health officials, the point at which our hospitals and facilities might become overrun and can't provide care to those who either have illnesses based on or as a result of COVID-19 or otherwise. And so again, looking at the numbers of people who are being hospitalized here in our state related to COVID-19. And again, the numbers under 18, as we're seeing those numbers rise. Our governor just on the 20th, earlier this week, announced, and I know many of you have been watching and listening, announced the need for more of the counties around the state so 13 more counties around the state to have additional restrictions. And we're hearing from our governor, greater concern about the spread in our state. So, given that, these are some of the things. I'll ask everyone, please, to mute your line if you haven't already. Thank you. Thank you. Glad you've joined us. As we're considering and looking again at our reopening plan, what are the things that are rising to the top as we consider just how would it work? What is our capacity to make it work and to keep people safe and educate children in the meantime? We've got these surging cases in our state, and they're surging at an exponential rate, and that's sobering. We've got our hospital facilities, many of them at capacity. And I won't share some of the stories that I'm hearing, but you know, plans are being made for those who don't make it and actually pass away due to COVID-19 and just the sheer numbers and what our officials are having to do to deal with that. Increased cases, and this is one of the key pieces that have been really sobering for us and increasingly alarming. It's not at all to say that we haven't been concerned up to this point, but increasingly alarming is the increased cases of young children contracting COVID-19. And as we've continued to socialize our plan and to work with our team and thinking about and planning specifically for, you know, what we would need to do given the plans as they stood and what we shared a week ago with our traditional and our hybrid model and what that would look like and what that would require of us in staffing and then looking again, as I said, at our staffing. Staff is spelled STAFF. Our ability to staff those models, we've been increasingly concerned about that and very seriously concerned at our ability or possible inability to staff those models as necessary. And understanding that, you know, just as it happens in offices and other places, just as it happens in people's homes and communities and church groups and folks in stores and all of that, you know, it's likely that if two people come together, it's highly likely that someone could contract the virus. And so as that happens, and as you go through the testing and quarantining and all of those protocols, our ability to stand up staffing for traditional and hybrid models just becomes seriously compromised and very, very, very quickly. So based on all of that, we've determined that we need to make a huge shift, and this is the shift. So for the fall semester of this 2020-2021 school year, Jackson Public Schools will provide only virtual instruction to our scholars. Only virtual instruction to our scholars. And so at this point, we're moving away from the offering of traditional, moving away from the offering of a hybrid model. Only virtual instruction. And I should really say learning from home, because we do know that, and actually let me talk about this for a minute. We know that not everyone is connected, and we know that we're not yet a district where we're one device for every scholar. We know that that's not our current situation. Given the exponential spread and increase of cases, and given the feedback that we've gotten from many of our stakeholders with concerns, including stakeholders who we heard one parent at the meeting this past earlier this week who stated that she needed her children, that she was going to send her children back to school in a traditional model, but she was very concerned about their safety. So even with that, we're at the point where we need to make this huge shift. And so I just want to let that sink in for a moment. So what this means for us is that we are having to work, shift our thinking and our planning and resourcing around without devices for every scholar across the district. We've got to, again, utilize our Comcast cable channels. We've got to utilize our YouTube channel for instructional videos. We've got to utilize instructional packets. We will be able to utilize some virtual instruction using laptops and using the video conferencing and allowing scholars to go on to some of our online tools that we utilize and to read some, we've got e-textbooks that we'll have available to us, electronic textbooks that we'll have available to us, perhaps other resources that we can shift out of schools. But we're acknowledging that we will have to have not the hybrid model in terms of folks online from home and in person, but a hybrid in terms of folks using some of the online tools as well as offline tools, books and instructional packets and that sort of thing. More on those details to come. And I know people have thousands of questions likely about that. More on those details to come. There's some things that we learned back in the spring that we'll be able to improve upon. Ensuring that everyone has packets right away, ensuring that that all scholars have access to teachers to support them in working through those printed packets, all of that sort of thing. Ensuring that that we have a consistent distribution of the tools that we do have in terms of laptops and Chromebooks, so that we can utilize those in teaching particular grade levels and subject matters and that sort of thing. We also, in moving towards this virtual delivery model, we have also considered moving our start date. And I know there's lots of conversation around the state even, and certainly in our area, about moving the start date for our scholars to return to school. And we've sliced and diced that option and the possibility of that, and looked at the pros and cons. And because we've landed on this virtual model, the issue of pushing back the start is less at issue for us. And in fact, for those of you who've watched and heard from Dr. Dobbs earlier this week, his advice around moving the start of school, pushing it back, or his counsel and his take on that is that it likely will not have the impact that people are looking for. We won't have a cure, we won't have a vaccine later in this month or at the start of September. We're likely to have more cases as we move further into the fall and get closer to the flu season and that. I should also say we're, picking up on that point about the flu season, we've determined that we need to remain virtual through the entire first semester. And so that's through the end of December, first semester. We've determined that we need to do that because if we only went out for the first 9 weeks, that means that we would be bringing our scholars back into the schools really just as the flu season is picking up, or right in the middle of the flu season. And based on all of the counsel and all of the predictions that we've heard, and probably that we've all heard with regard to the flu virus and coronavirus, it just does not make sense to bring our scholars back at that time. And so that's why we've elected to use the entire first semester to instruct our scholars and serve them virtually only. Back to the start of school. So we've determined that we do want to identify at least a little more time in order to prepare ourselves for this move to all virtual instruction. But for various reasons, and some very real reasons, we didn't want to go much further than, or further out from, the original start date. So for our JPS scholars, the original start date was August 10th. We've simply moved that to August 12th, which gives us just 2 more days with our teachers, with our staff, before our scholars start, to allow us a bit more time for planning, a little bit more time for building the lessons, arranging and pulling together resourcing, a little bit more time for disseminating materials out to our scholars before we actually start instruction on the 12th of August. Again, I know there are those who believe that we need to push the start of school back. We've seriously considered that, and like several other districts that are not moving the start date, we too believe that the start date makes sense, and especially given that we're going virtual, complete virtual. I think I want to pause here, board members, and see what questions you have.
Dr. Green, I want to particularly ask about what families can do to make this process easier for children, and what family and the community can do to make it more efficient and make the process go a little bit smoother for the district as well. So if you have any ideas on how we can all contribute to making this as successful as possible.
Yes, and thank you. Yes, ma'am, and thank you for that question. We talked a lot as we were marching towards the launch of our plan. We talked a lot about varying needs of families. We talked a lot about and stressed that our families are not similarly situated. We've got many families who need their children to be in school. That has not gone away. That's still a need. And while we don't have the answer for that, I am very proud, and I didn't talk about this when we, last week when we shared the plan, but I'm very proud of and very pleased to be in partnership with some of the local organizations, and I'll name a couple at the risk of offending others that I don't name, but the United Way, our Boys and Girls Club, Shoestring. They have been among the, kind of the front line in conversations with us about how we might provide some wraparound and some what we might call safety net services to families who are grappling with how they might make this work. You and I, President Johnson, and actually in conversation with some of the other team members, we've discussed ways that families might partner together. If you know that you and your family have been, wearing your masks and remaining close to home, and you've been really serious about creating that safety cocoon around your family and your children, and you know of another family that's been doing something similar, it makes sense for families to create some alliances and to support one another, even as scholars plug into the instruction from our teachers and from the district, but supporting them in processing and doing some of the practice work offline, and working through some of the packets and that sort of thing, reading and reviewing some of the texts that they will be engaged in, and that sort of thing. So for sure, as families think about their own situations and how they might want to work with one another, they can certainly do some partnering in that way. Some parents, again, some parents will need help with their children being in a place as they go to work. And so if you are able to provide some care as children are in school during the day virtually, while your family member, church member, neighbor is at work, then that of course will be a huge benefit to members of the community. As well, not everyone is connected to the internet, and of course, as you start to pile on to your modem at the house, you start to see some issues with connectivity. But as we're working to get clearer as to who needs a hotspot or who needs a device and that sort of thing up front, that might be another piece where organizations around the city might provide places for young people to come and distance themselves and to plug into their connectivity. We'll be looking at more creative ways to get connectivity out in and around the community as well. Not the least of which, as I mentioned, hotspots, and that's something that we'll have very limited capacity with that, but that's one way that we're looking to support families as well. We have been and continue, and I'm very excited about work that we're doing in partnership with the City of Jackson to create a wire mesh in parts of the city and spreading that out over the city as we're able to. Was in conversation with some folks earlier today who are wanting to help with this. Our Kellogg Foundation partners have reached out and they are providing some support with that as well. So there are folks who are positioning themselves to help us. It's just doing that as quickly as possible so that we can access it. I'll pause there. So I've kind of given you what comes to mind right now in terms of support.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, President Johnson. I don't believe I said this, and do want to make sure we and I'll it's escaping me the folks that we're working with, but we've got, I believe, a couple of partnerships with organizations to help us with parent training programs. We are ensuring that there's some basic knowledge that our parents will have, and not just one stop, but over time that parents will have in utilizing our online platforms, in navigating those, and that's for our youngest scholars as well as our oldest scholars, just so that parents are able to provide additional accountability and support to young people as they engage online or in packets or engaging, availing themselves to the lessons that are posted on our Comcast cable channel, on YouTube, etc. I'll pause there, see if there are other questions.
Board members?
Well, Dr. Green, thank you. You touched on my question. I wanted to ask a question about professional development for parents. I know that's good to have organizations that are going to do that, but I was just wondering, are there any plans for the district to assume some of that responsibility to make sure that parents that need the training so that they can help their students, their children, are able to get that training?
Yes, I'm getting texts from my friends. My phone of friends are texting in. So yes, Parents for Public Schools, the Parents for Public Schools National Office is seeking to support. We will absolutely provide direct support to families from the district as well. I would imagine that all of my colleagues on the line, leading schools, and some of the teachers as well, are thinking about ways that they'll want to support their parents with some of the specific things that they'll look to do and to lead to provide. So we want to provide as many opportunities as we can, and over time, because there's, you learn something or hear something in August, and perhaps in late September, you don't recall that thing, don't recall how to access this resource, how to upload this video, this document as a deliverable for your child. So we'll provide that over time. And one of the things I know Dr. Smith, our Executive Director of Teaching and Learning, is working on is the actual schedule. She and Thea Faulkner as well are working on schedules of when those will be available to parents.
Okay.
We hope that we'll get a complaint from someone saying that we've offered too much. That's what we're working for.
Okay, I thank you for that response. You know, I was just thinking in terms of, you know, the proper preparation to ensure the safety, the social, emotional, and intellectual well-being of all students, as well as parents. And that is very important for this to be a successful, was to have a successful outcome on this venture, which is new to all of us.
Yes, ma'am.
And of course, you know, we just have to put our heads together and do what is best for the students so they will not end up losing out on a quality education.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I'll say maybe try to say two quick things in addition there. So as much as we will be providing and are excited actually to provide some support to families so that they understand the tools that we're using and expectations of young people and navigation and schedules and all of that sort of thing, content, of course. Our expectation is that we remain your family's providers, your principal provider, right? The expectation is not that our parents are now the principal provider, but we're paid to provide this service. And while, you know, because of health concerns, we're moving to this virtual setting, we're still paid to provide this service. And so I want to be absolutely clear that our expectation is that we will do that. And I know my colleagues have had lots of sleepless nights and thinking through how we do that and do that most effectively, how they can get smarter and smarter as quickly as possible so that we're steps ahead of families and we're ready to answer questions. We're ready to guide them and coach them. And so while there'll be formal support to our families, to our parents and guardians, there's also the ongoing just access to teachers and school leaders when they get stuck, you know, if there's something they just have a question about.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Green,
Yes,
I appreciate so much your following the data, as we say, and your honesty with the board and the community regarding the need to pivot for the best interest of all of our students. And I was glad to see that we're planning on using all of the available platforms that we have too, as you mentioned, YouTube and ITV and other tools. Do we have an update on the devices? I know, as we discussed last time, every school district in the world is trying, and I ask that only to help parents in the spirit of reaching out to our parents to have an idea of, you know, what maybe their next 3 weeks after school open will look like, or maybe 5 weeks, I don't know. But to be as honest and helpful to parents as to what the reality will be so that we can help them plan to meet it, whatever it is for their particular situation.
Yes, ma'am. So it's a tough situation. And so we're expecting that it'll be sometime in perhaps even late October. That's the kind of worst case. And our distributors have been, you know, I appreciate that. I would love it if they actually thought that we'd get them in late August for them to say that, but they've been saying late October. And so we're trying to manage expectations around that. That being the case, we really need to be surgical about the resources that we have and not just, hey, you know, your name starts with A and we're starting alphabetically until you get one. We really need our community members, and kind of tied back to President Johnson's question, we really need our parents and community members to say to us, or parents to say to us, hey, I've got 3 kids. We have a device in the home. While we would like another, there's at least an opportunity for my scholars to get online and to avail themselves to this, to learning virtually, versus another home where there's not a device. And we've simply got to be thoughtful about that. I don't want to go too deep into the planning of distribution, but there is a plan that is being developed for distribution and working with families, especially where we've got siblings in the district, working with families to ensure that, to the extent possible, that there's a device. And that's something that we'll be able to share pretty quickly, because obviously we need to start to deliver on that. As well, there's a plan for distributing devices to our teachers. One of the things that I believe you board members know, but just to remind our staff know this, I don't have to remind them, but to remind the community, we are not even one-to-one, or we're not one-to-one with our teachers. And so I'm excited, again, if there's any kind of a silver lining to all this madness, that we have the resources, or we're getting the resources to get a device for each of our teachers. Let me say this too, because apparently there are misunderstandings about the resourcing coming from the federal government. We've not received any of that money as of yet. Lots of people are working hard. There's lots of bureaucracy wrapped up in it, and requirements and limitations and reporting and stipulations, all kinds of things. I want to be absolutely clear. We have not received $1 of those millions of dollars that are coming to our district. So for everyone out there who's wondering why it's taking us so long to purchase devices, we've not received any of that money. Two, we are purchasing along with millions and millions and millions and millions of other people who are purchasing, and districts and systems. So, a little grace around that would be appreciated. We are, as a district, we have identified funding and maneuvered with our funding that we have already, such that we can make purchases as quickly as possible and be reimbursed by the federal government. And thank God we have that kind of flexibility with our resources. Many districts don't have that flexibility, and they simply cannot get devices until that money comes in to their coffers. So those are some of the details, what I like to say, sausage making, that goes into all of this. The federal government isn't just tossing out millions of dollars without a lot of stipulations and reporting and structures around it. And so we're in that right now, just for clarity.
Yeah. Thank you. And to bring out another good point that I was reminded of, you've told us this before, when you talked about being surgical with the distribution, we have to be mindful of the educational needs of each of our students and our seniors who are trying to graduate. What do they need? So we've all got to keep that in mind when we look from the outside and want to know why such and such and such. Well, it's a very thoughtful process that's going to help as many of our students, scholars as we can, as often as we can.
Yeah. My team is keeping me focused. A couple of other points that I should make here, and kind of picking up on the last thing you said, Dr. Hairston. We are very concerned about some of our, all of our scholars, but there are some scholars who are already challenged, have learning needs, have physical needs, and that sort of thing. The plan that we launched before had its challenges. This plan has its challenges, and so I don't want folks to walk away from this presentation thinking, we're not mindful of those challenges. Trust me when I say we're mindful of those challenges. There are young people, could be, you can There's an argument about our youngest scholars, our pre-K and K scholars, first, second scholars as well. There's an argument about our scholars with special needs. There's an argument about our scholars who are medically fragile. An argument about our scholars who are English language learners. Please, okay. Who are English language learners. And so, you know, we're mindful of all of those babies. And our team is already kind of crafting the, you know, the more nuanced engagement with those families around what's possible during this, in this virtual environment, and how we kind of set them up to continue their learning over time. Also, many staff members, I kind of talked a little bit about this when I mentioned the considerations for us kind of coming back around and revisiting our reopening plan. Many of our staff members are concerned about their own health and have health challenges and have families with health challenges. And you know, that's real. That's a part of our reality. Frankly, it is for every district. It's certainly a part of our reality. And as we indicated previously to our team, and I'll indicate again here, we know that we've got to work with individuals to understand their situations and understand, you know, what those challenges are and all of that. But the default expectation for all of our team members is that we're working from the district. We're working from our schools and from district offices. Again, I'll say again, for anyone who missed it, I know that we have team members who have particular issues that make it next to impossible for them to work in person in a school with, even with other teachers or other staff members in the building around them at all. Understood. And we devised a process to understand more intimately and directly and specifically those circumstances. But we're starting from an expectation that all staff will be working from the school. And so there's a cascading effect. We've got staff members who are single parents or where both parents work. And so this is a challenge if they have children in the system or children in other systems where those children are learning virtually. This is a common experience for working parents. It's not just JPS, for working parents in general, that we're aware is a challenge. But that's just one piece of kind of what we know will be some decision making and some work that will have to happen living into this new reality. I'm naming this because I want to be real clear from the start that, you know, we're expecting everyone to come to work and to work from the school. And for those who have special issues, health-related issues or and that sort of thing, that we'll work with those individuals to mind that and understand and to make accommodations where we can. The reality is there are some roles that make it impossible for individuals to work virtually. That's just the reality. And so we'll have to, you know, work with those individuals. So we'll have to work with those individuals to determine. Please mute. Can we please mute Ms. Brown?
That leg's hurt.
Range of decision making and
For real.
they'll have to do. Extracurricular and athletics. That's the last thing that I'll touch on, and I know there may be other questions from board members. We are continuing to monitor and to engage with state officials around extracurricular and athletics. My best guess at this point is that we likely will not have our athletic programs and extracurricular programs for this first semester. But you will hear the official plan around that as quickly as possible. What other questions do you have, board members?
Madam Chair, Madam President, Honorable Superintendent, I would early today, I received a telephone call from the president of the National Baptist USA Incorporated. You mentioned grace. This call from the of an 8 million member body. He expressed his concern about children going back to school physically, face to face. And he wishes that our children not go back face to face. He supports virtual learning all the way. Now, when he said that to me, I was a bit taken that he would call a little fella like me. But
you're an important guy.
I asked him, understand, I'm a Baptist. I attend Shady Grove Missionary Baptist Church, and I understand Baptist polity, the way Baptists do things. So I asked him to contact the president of the state Baptist Convention, the General Missionary Baptist State Convention of Mississippi, as well as the moderator of the Jackson District Association, which is an association of some 150 churches located within the city of Jackson. And he did, and had them to call me, and they expressed the same idea about virtual learning. So in addition to being in communication with them, I was also in communication with the presiding elder of the African Methodist Episcopal Church in this area, as well as the African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church, as well as the Black Methodist for Church Renewal, which is the Black caucus that exists in the United Methodist Church. They all express virtual learning for children, for the safety of children and families. In addition, I also was in contact with the Church of Christ Holiness USA Incorporated, Bishop of the state of Mississippi, and he expressed the same sentiments. As you may know, the Church of Christ Holiness USA Incorporated's headquarters is here in Jackson because it was founded here in Jackson out of the Mount Hale Missionary Baptist Church, where board member Hilliard attends. In addition, I have been empowered to speak on behalf of the Church of God in Christ, presiding bishop of the state of Mississippi, which is the fastest growing historically Black church denomination in the country, and as well as non-denominational historically Black church leaders. And they all unanimously, unconditionally support virtual learning for children in Jackson Public Schools. So you said grace, and I think with this unprecedented show of unity between bodies, religious bodies in this area, that you have a tremendous outpouring of grace and support. In addition, I'm moving around because the dogs is out. It's raining outside.
Yes, sir.
In addition, with every challenge comes opportunity. And we have, with the unprecedented support from the people that you've named, the constituent bodies that I've named, and that all of us board members know that with that support, we have in this challenge a tremendous opportunity to provide for our children in the best possible way, with literacy being our primary concern, that we can probably leap forward. And with regard to our parents, the developmental support that people in the community and parents can offer is it just does not appear what it could become.
Yes, sir.
And I want to thank you for making these complicated, these difficult decisions that no one on earth has ever had to face or make before. The team of people that you've assembled around you are just stellar in terms of the enlightenment that God provides for people.
Thank you. Can I give you a task, Mr. Figures, or ask you to take on a task?
Yes, I'm honored to do what I can with what little I have. Yes, I'm honored to do it.
Mr. Figures, that you just read off a remarkable, I'll leave it at that, a remarkable list of resources, of organizations. And to the and for those that are physically located here, and I believe most of them were, if not all of them,
yes,
physically located in this area, I am very concerned about the families that are not connected and are not prepared to engage in ways that this new model will provide for. I'm very concerned about that. And to the extent that those religious organizations, people of faith, those bodies, community bodies, can wrap their arms around and in a very real and present way, active way, engage with our school leaders and with the schools, perhaps even the schools that are closest to their facilities, and ensure that not one of those babies is without someone who can look in on them beyond the capacity that our teachers and principals are able to do. That would be huge. That would be huge. And so if we could get some level of commitment from each of those organizations to join us and wrap their arms around schools, and that's just my suggestion now. The smart people on the team might have a different way to kind of engage them, but if they could do that, then that helps us to ensure that the 350 or the 600 or whatever number of scholars in that school community, that each of them is seen, that we know that they're safe, we know that they're being fed, we know that they're keeping up with, to some degree, their studies. That would be huge.
I'll accept that responsibility, Honorable Superintendent.
Thank you.
And you know, that's all any of us are required to do. What we can with what we have, wherever we are.
That's right. That's right. What other questions do you have, board members, or reactions do you want to share?
Well, I can't, it's going to be tough to follow that, Dr. Green. And so thank you, Mr. Figures, for just all you do. I want to ask a few, so first of all, let me just say thank you for acknowledging our teachers who are in situations where they may be immunocompromised, where they may be in a family situation that makes it challenging. And so I just want to press, just the importance of coming up with a solution, frankly, so that we can retain our best staff. And I know one of the trade-offs for keeping people safe may be rigor. I mean, that was our experience as parents in the spring. And I know we learned a lot. And I'm excited to see that learning implemented. And so I want to make sure that we do everything we can to keep our certified teachers in front of our students, because they're frankly our most important asset. You spoke to the devices. The reality is we have a decent number of devices. I've heard as many as 9,000, 10,000. So it's not like we're starting from nothing. I think it's important to just signal that to the community. And so that, again, going back to Mr. Figures' part, we can do our part. For those who have, devices, we can do our part and make sure others who need them can get them. Have you thought, how are we going to support, so we're starting on August 12th. Can you speak a little bit to the supports we're going to provide teachers to prepare for the virtual learning, and both from a technology perspective, but also a planning perspective to implement the curriculum over the next semester?
Yeah, happy to talk about that a bit. And I've got our Executive Director of Teaching and Learning on the line as well, so she can probably fill in any holes that I leave, Dr. Smith. But I'll start with this. So I think it's always important to name that, just like with parents, just like with devices, not everyone is starting in the same place. We have some teachers and some school leaders and some counselors and other folks on our team who are rock stars with regard to using the technology and engaging in that format. And they have already begun to kind of raise their hands and say, hey, I'm ready, I'm willing to share what I've learned. And some of them are new rock stars, just in the last several months have just gotten smart out of necessity. And so I'm excited that we have eyes on those individuals. We're aware of several of them, and they're engaging with us to support their colleagues in various ways. So a couple of things that are already underway. One, we've got an online kind of primer that we're expecting everyone, all of our teachers, I hope that's not news to you teachers, hopefully you all know this already, a primer that we're expecting everyone to go through, just to give them just a level set, some very basic understanding of what it means to use Canvas, what it means to use Google Classroom, and that sort of thing. So there's that. And we are offering, are we up to about 1,300? What's the number for next week, Dr. Smith?
We are at 300. We met capacity for the Teacher Institute, but we
Yes.
are also training the first week in August. And so the additional days will give us 2 more days to train as well.
Gotcha. So for next week, we're running a Teachers Institute for the last couple of years, and probably even prior to my coming on board with JPS, we've run a Teachers Institute. And this is an opportunity for teachers, and they're off contract. But these are folks who just want to get smarter and prepare. And we're at capacity already, right? So we're running a Teachers Institute, and so that will be an opportunity for folks for our teachers and our Office of Teaching and Learning and others to lead out with, again, the technology that we're utilizing, the tools, some of the teaching strategies that we'll be able to employ or implement using the technology. And so that's next week, and for 2 days next week. As we prepare to welcome teachers back, the now 5 days that we have prior to scholars returning on the 12th, the 5 work days that we have with teachers, because we're now in a virtual environment, solely virtual environment, we can focus so much of that time on what it means to set up your virtual classroom. The tools that we'll utilize. We've got tons of tools, actually, tons of electronic or online resources. But part of the goal will be ensuring that folks focus in on a few things and get those down pat. And then over time, and this is the goal and the approach of the Office of Teaching and Learning, over time, keep developing our skills to use more tools, more resources. It can be overwhelming for any of us. And so we want to provide teachers with that setup as well. I believe I've mentioned this before, but it's such a wonderful thing that I want to state it again. We're providing all of our teachers with the first, at least 2, I think the team has gone beyond 2 weeks worth of lessons. And infusing in those lessons what we know about trauma and what we know about social and emotional learning, such that sure, it's content, but it's also bringing the young people back, doing the things that we know to do when they come back in person after a regular summer, let alone a summer plus months of being out last spring. So that's infused in the lessons that we've already developed and will deliver to teachers. So that we're also developing schedules over time to continue the ongoing development and learning and just sharing of best practices amongst teachers, so that no one has to feel like they're figuring it out on their own or any of that. I was told, someone sent me a note to say that we also have teachers who are taking courses over the summer, again, just to grow their brains. So there's the stuff that we're doing as a district across the board. They're the things that different school groups are doing to prepare themselves, school leader or teacher groups and that sort of thing, which is amazing. And individuals who are taking it upon themselves just to take courses and get smarter and prepare themselves. I think the key here that I want to stress is the expectation is not that every one of our teachers can go and teach a course on how to teach virtually come August. That's not the expectation. The expectation is that all of our teachers have a base level of skill and knowledge as to how we move and maneuver and set up a virtual learning space, such that every child has a basic positive experience, and we continue to build upon that over time. And the things that we learned in the first couple of days, that we build on those for the next few days and the next week and the next month. I actually feel most confident about this piece because folks have been, we had, as you all know, we had teachers teaching virtually over the summer in our Summer Boost program. And we heard from some parents, it's the most amazing thing. My child loved it, et cetera, et cetera. So that plus some of the lessons learned back in the spring, I feel most confident about professional development for our team. it's some of the, equity issues that just continue to plague us that we'll have to keep working through.
Do you think we've got enough days built in on the front end to support getting as much of our team ready as possible?
I actually do. We considered more days and funding. Obviously, any additional days that you add onto the calendar, you've got to pay for them or take them from someplace else in the school year. With 5 days on the front end of the calendar, just for teachers and for staff readiness, and taking away setting up a physical classroom, which is huge. Teachers spend considerable time just doing that, arranging desks and that sort of thing in the physical space. So taking that away, obviously you still got some work to build team, even virtually amongst school teams and grade level teams. But there's less of that and more time that can be spent on the virtual instruction. So, and I should also say, there's a such thing as a point of saturation, right? For most of us, as you're learning, you get to the point where your brain is full, and now you need to take what you've learned or what you've heard and apply it to deepen it and solidify that new learning. We can keep training on new things and new tools and resources, but at some point you start to lose the things that you were trained on first because you're at saturation. And so we want to it's more important to do this over time, and even embedded in the teaching, we've got some structures to support and coach teachers, and teachers coaching teachers, instructional coaches, and school leaders, and some of our partners to support instruction over time. We're confident that the experience in this fall is going to be even continue to build on what we learned over the summer, which was largely a hit. And add to that accountability. And I'm talking specifically about our babies. Like, this isn't just, learn if you want to. There's accountability for learning at this point. And so there's a different orientation, I think, as they engage and as parents engage, and certainly as we engage.
That's really helpful. Just a couple of more questions. Thank you for that.
Sure.
Will students be using textbooks this semester? And if so, is there going to be a process for disseminating those textbooks?
I am assuming that we will. I'll need to punt that question to Dr. Smith to determine so I should say, obviously, this shift is, just in the last couple of days. And so I don't know that we've gotten to that determination, Dr. Smith.
We will be using our digital textbooks. All of our academic curricular does integrate with our learning management platforms, Google Classroom, as well as Canvas. And so we will be using our digital textbooks so that when students or teachers actually assign those assignments, they will be available. Also, too, even our newly adopted curriculum will have an access to offline. So students that do not have access to a connection at home can even complete those activities offline. And then when they get to a spot where they can get connection, everything will upload online.
And of course, we'll have to keep thinking through. And so for those who don't have a device at all, if in any of those cases, what's the resource? So we'll be sure to come back around on that question.
No, that's very helpful. And that leads to my last question. So I was really encouraged to see all the work that went into some of the freshman orientation around the district. There were several virtual meetings planned. And I wonder, is there an opportunity? How do we give parents a platform to ask of their school leader all the questions that parents currently have? Can we utilize this platform that we're using now to create forums? I just know that there are lots of questions, and some of them will be school specific, depending on if you're in a program school or if about certain teachers, or even just how do I register, or when do I get my schedule. It will be family specific, it will be school specific. And I really want us to think through how we create a forum for parents to get that feedback before August 12th, and
Yes,
maybe
sir.
multiple opportunities to do so.
Yeah, I would imagine, because obviously, you get a number of people on a Zoom, and that gets a little unwieldy. But I have not spoken directly with the team about parent orientation, but I know that it's happening for groups of scholars, and so we'll take that as a task that I would imagine our school leaders, and we've got several on the line now, would appreciate some opportunities to level set with parents and hear their questions, respond to those, but also, talk about kind of how we're thinking about this living into the new normal, some of the expectations there that will exist, and how we build school spirit in a virtual setting. All of those things matter. And so I appreciate the question. I'll simply log that with the team and be prepared to come back around a future board meeting with more details on what the team comes up with around that.
Thanks again, Dr. Green. And again, just appreciate you and your team, and frankly, all of Team JPS. You mentioned people working without pay, just to get better for our students. And it's just a signal of the commitment. I see people, all the time who they care about our students. And again, just appreciate all the work and thoughtfulness, and also for keeping the safety and health of our students, our faculty, our community top of mind.
Yes, sir. It's my pleasure.
I have one question. I have a question that was just emailed to me about advanced curriculum in terms of how will the district still be doing the advanced curriculum programs, such as the APAC, IB, all of those, and whether or not the instruction will be tailored to that, to those.
Yes, ma'am. So we're excited to recreate experiences to the extent possible in this virtual environment. I know that there are plans. I know specifically of some plans with some of the programs and less so with others, but our expectation is that we will continue to offer the programs, just understanding that they will look different, especially those, the arts programs, the performing arts programs in that. But I know the team has been working furiously and feverishly over the summer even to reimagine what, for example, what the APAC could look like. So that's something that I would imagine the school-based orientations would start to more specifically ferret out exactly what what that would look like for scholars. Casey being an arts infused, arts integrated program, and so and in a virtual setting, what does that mean for my third grader, fifth grader, what have you?
Yeah.
So
excellent program. That elementary program. It's excellent. Yes. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. I know I see Kim Smith writing. I know folks are taking notes and asking questions. I do want to make sure that we come back around with some more definitive plans around that. So just so you know, we will ensure that you hear more on these questions.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So Dr. Green.
Yes, ma'am.
So seeing that we have so many people on this call, I think at one point we were at 500. and I'm assuming a lot of these individuals are parents, what can parents expect in terms of next steps and in terms of a commitment, in terms of communication from the district moving
Yes.
forward?
Yes. First thing is we still need parents to register. If you intend to, and we'll update update / remove, clean up the piece that asks about the different models, since we're running one model, the virtual model. But we do need parents to register. We need to know who's going to be where. And without that, it's really, really difficult for us to staff and resource and all those things. And in the registration process, we ask parents about devices and connectivity and that sort of thing. So that's one. Please, please, please. And something that came up earlier, but I feel the need to just state for the record here, maybe it goes without saying for some, but we obviously will not be issuing devices and resources to individuals who are not registered. Again, you would think that goes without saying, but I want to be absolutely clear. We simply can't do that. And so please register. Please let us know where you are in terms of resourcing so that we can plan accordingly with that. I know that we've got a board, or you've got a board member scheduled for the 4th. We need to adjust our calendar while we're not adding days, but there's a shift in the calendar. So we plan to bring the calendar formally back around to you with the adjusted time start date for our scholars, and to show you exactly how we're making up those 2 days in the calendar. So we'll bring that back around for formal approval from the board on the 4th. We know that we also need to get a schedule of parent trainings out, and so we can commit to doing this by the end of next week. Schedule of parent trainings out next week, as well as our distribution plan. We will commit to getting that out by the end of next week. Team has been working and pulling their hair out, trying to figure out exactly how to do this in the smartest, most efficient way. We just got to we've just got to move on it. And so we'll get that out by the end of next week, because we do want folks to know how we'll determine who gets devices first, and how they will pick those up. And I know we've already done a lot of thinking about it. In terms of staffing, for those who have, and I said it earlier, but I want to say it again, for those who have specific health conditions and underlying concerns that they feel would make it difficult for them to work from the school setting or from the district office setting or wherever their workspace is, then we have a process that we'll ask them to engage in that process, to make that known of our team. I believe those are going to our human resources general counsel, so that we can begin processing those concerns, and get clearer on any direction that we'll need to take with regard to staff. I believe those are some of the biggest pieces right now, as well as the parent orientation schedules for that. So schedules for or dissemination plan of devices and resources, schedules for parent trainings, and parent orientation or parent meetings at the school levels. We'll get dates and more information about those by the end of next week, if not earlier. And I know my team will hold me to it and make sure we keep to those dates, those timelines.
Thank you. And what you need from parents is to go ahead and register.
Yes.
We need that
please,
data. Okay.
Please. We're still begging folks to register, and it's hugely important, and it's easy.
Okay. Thank you. That answers my question. Board members, any more questions, comments?
I just want to add my thanks to the team, Dr. Green, and I think you've covered all the bases. I mean, this is a huge topic, and I'm so glad to see so many people online. Of course, we're going to have to continue having a robust communication plan, as Dr. Sivak mentioned in our last board meeting, beyond just social media and what's on our website. We're going to have to be really intentional about that. And the one point I would just stress here too are those social services that we provide in the feeding programs and how that's going to progress here in the fall, and making sure that our families who depend on these services have access to them. I know Thea Faulkner and the team and Partners in Education and the rest of the JPS community is going to be all on board for this, but certainly concerned about that as well.
Yes, sir. And in fact, I got a note and failed to say this earlier. I know that Mark Rowe, our Executive Director of Child Nutrition, is already planning for the grab and go process and program, and expanding the sites, greatly expanding the sites, and looking at additional ways to ensure that both meal distribution as well as packet distribution, that all of that is that we're attending to that.
Good. Glad to hear it.
And as you mentioned, of course, Thea Faulkner is working her magic with our community partners.
Any other comments, board members? Okay. There being none, I just want my last comment, of course, is this is a very, very hard time. I appreciate the district being so flexible and working so hard. And I know we were all very, very proud of that first plan. There are no other people that I would like to go through this process with. So I'm glad that we're all going through this process together, because I know the hearts and minds of our board members, the superintendent, and your team. And we really do have the community's best interests at heart and are committed to doing our very, very best.
To a person.
Yeah. So we need a little grace, a little flexibility, but going along with what Mr. Figger said, it is possible to come out of this better. And now we are moving on to public comment. I think we have 5 individuals for public comment. Is that correct, Rosalind?
We have 4, and the first one is Nakilia Johnson Carr.
Okay, let me just set some expectations real quick. You'll have 3 minutes for your comments. The moderator will keep time for you. The board really does believe in public comment and is eager to give opinion, to listen to your comments. However, we generally do not give any feedback. And if, as always, we can be reached via our emails, which is on the board site.
Okay, hi, hello, how's everyone doing? Okay, my concern is, even though you already touched bases on it, it still all goes back to the students who don't have access to internet or a laptop to do their work, and with parents that ultimately work overnight or in the morning that can't help their kids with their work. Like, how do you all plan to help these students succeed in school for this fall semester? That's really my only concern, because I know that some parents had that issue when this happened back in March. Even with the packet pickup, some parents are not able to go pick the packets up so their children can complete it. And some parents are just not teacher savvy. They don't know really how to communicate with with their kids to educate them. And that's pretty much all that I had to say.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for bringing that in particular issue up. That's not something that's come to the board's attention before. So I'm sure that it will go into consideration in terms of our planning. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Frances LaPlante or LaPlante. Ms. Frances LaPlante. Okay, we have Matthew, is it Hall or Hole? Mr. Matthew Hole. Okay, Ms. Deja Ware O'Banner. I think you, Dr. Green may have answered all of their questions. So we're back in your hands, President Johnson.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Moving on down the agenda, now we are at information only items. Ms. Mason. Oh, hold on, we do. Ms. O'Banner?
Yes, this is Ms. O'Banner.
Go ahead and make your comment.
I just want to thank you all. I had a lot of questions, but I want to tell you, y'all have answered and solved what I needed answered. Thank y'all so much for a God-fearing group of people, Dr. Green, to all the board. Thank y'all so much. Y'all have just blessed us so much by the decision you made. And just thank y'all from the bottom of our hearts. And to everyone, be blessed and continue to be safe.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Mason.
If Ms. Mason is unavailable, I'm prepared to present the board item this
No,
evening.
I'm here. I unmuted and then I remuted when Ms. O'Bannon started talking. Sorry about that.
I understand.
I'm here. All right, let's start over. Rewind. Good evening. We're bringing you a policy revision tonight for information. In response to the COVID-19 pandemic, the administration is seeking to revise board policy JIAB laptops. This policy lays out the process for the distribution of laptops to students, and we are revising the existing policy to, number one, communicate the desire of the board and the administration to pursue one-to-one access of laptops and device technology for all scholars, and eliminate the requirement for a $40 deposit to access a device in order to promote more equitable use of technology. The cost for repairs varies by device, is set annually and published in the JPS Technology Handbook. Users will still be required to comply at all times with the Jackson Public School Student Technology Handbook procedures. Any failure to comply may terminate user rights of possession immediately, and the district may repossess the device. Any lost, stolen, and damaged laptops must be reported to school authorities immediately.
Thank you, Ms. Mason. Board members, are there any questions or comments?
I'd just like to comment that the Policy Review Committee looks forward to reviewing this policy and to remind our community and the public that all of our policies under review, including this one, are posted on our webpage. So we appreciate your feedback as you read the policy yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Harrison. Board members, if there are no other questions, we are moving on to information action items. Attorney Robinson.
Good evening to Board President Johnson, Vice President Seaback, board members, and all who serve and support Jackson Public Schools. Good evening. Before the board is an information/action item regarding the recommendation of the Office of the General Counsel on behalf of the risk management team that the law firm Adams and Reese continues its representation of the district in relation to additional data mining that is necessary to determine the extent of the impact of the ransomware attack against the district. Additional data mining is necessary to identify all impacted individuals and provide them necessary notice of the incident. To that end, we are requesting that the board agree to engage Adams and Reese with this specific work via the memorandum of understanding provided in the board materials. Please note that the MOU uploaded yesterday has been amended to address concerns that were raised by board attorney Dorian Turner. The first concern related to paragraph B of the agreement regarding the lawyers providing the services. The second issue was related to paragraph I regarding fees and expenses. After speaking with Mr. Griffin, who is our counsel related to the cyber attack, Adams and Reese provided a revised MOU that addressed both of these concerns, and that was also uploaded right before this meeting. The cost of this extended engagement will be covered via the remaining balance of the Chubb cyber insurance policy and other budgeted monies. Lastly, please be advised that if the board has specific questions about the scope of the work, Attorney Adam Griffin is also on the line from Adams and Reese, and he will be leading the effort related to the data mining and is available to address some of those questions as well. I'm happy to address any questions that the board may have at this time.
Board members, are there any questions?
Did have one question, Attorney Robinson. What is the actual, is there a budget? How much, what is our financial exposure in this agreement?
It's $615,000. We have Chubb coverage for up to about $500,000, and the remaining balance has been budgeted in our current budget for the remaining balance. We had a $1 million policy, and because of the previous kind of engagement with the cyber coach, we've already spent money towards that policy, so we have about $500,000 left.
Okay, so 500,000 will be covered under an existing insurance policy.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or comments, board members? Is there a motion to approve information action item A?
I so move.
I didn't get who moved.
Second.
Sorry.
Ms. Hilliard.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Hilliard has moved and Dr. Luckett has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? There being none, the motion is approved.
Thank you.
Next, board members, we have the consent agenda items personnel. All of the consent agenda items have been reviewed by the board previously. We've had an opportunity to ask questions of the administration. Are there any further questions or comments? If not, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda items personnel?
So moved.
Second.
Dr. Sivak has moved. Ms. Hilliard has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? There being none, the motion is approved. Is there a need for us to hold an executive session? It doesn't sound like it. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Dr. Harrison has moved. Ms. Hilliard has seconded. All in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? There being none, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much, board members.
Thank you.